When it comes to civil liberties, Guantanamo Bay has been America's elephant in the room for more than a decade. And right now, that elephant is charging into walls. A hunger strike has swept the detention center, prompted simply because guards keep searching prisoners' Korans for contraband. The results of the hunger strike have included force feeding and clashes between the military and detainees. Now, at the same time, a task force that includes former Bush official Asa Hutchinson and former FBI Director William Sessions just released a report on detainee treatment. And here are a few of their conclusions. Prepare to not be even slightly surprised. Quote, U.S. forces in many instances used interrogation techniques on detainees that constitute torture. Again, a bipartisan report. There is no firm or persuasive evidence that the widespread use of harsh interrogation techniques by U.S. forces produce significant information of value. And at long last, the continued indefinite detention of many prisoners at Guantanamo should be addressed. Really? You don't say. Let's bring in Carlos Warner, an assistant federal public defender who represents 11 Guantanamo detainees. Mr. Warner, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight.
John, thank you for having me.
Well, like everybody who actually gets to hear this, and I'm assuming a lot of news organizations won't cover this report, I have to ask, could this report help your clients? Will it be influential enough to finally really move something?
Well, in order for there to be movement, we need to have the president, that impassioned individual I heard in that last segment, stand up and tell the right and tell the American public we're going to free these innocent individuals, the 86 men who are starving themselves to death right now in Guantanamo. The report is helpful, and we agree with all of the conclusions, or 98% of the conclusions. The problem is the American public won't necessarily read the report, and we need to have the average Joe on the street understand who's in Guantanamo. The report talks about, look, these are not the worst of the worst. These are not terrorists, but you know that's what the average Joe on the street believes. That's the guy they believe who's in Guantanamo. It's just not true. So it's an education, but you know the president could do this in a minute if he wanted to, but his attention's elsewhere, and it's tragic because these men are dying now.
Well, now, you mentioned 86 men. I want to clarify that number. That's 86 men in Guantanamo who have, in fact, been cleared for release, yet they're still sitting in cages month after month. Officially, the number of men on hunger strikers is now 52. There have been wildly differing estimates on what the real number is. What does your information say?
Okay, the number's 130. The military plays games with the numbers. They say there's 15 people who are being fed through the nose. The bottom line is that it's not always the same 15, it's not always the same 52. They, for example, call somebody, an individual who's starving himself, not a hunger striker, because they think they saw him eating trail mix, this sort of thing. The military doesn't have any control in the prison now. Actually, they have ultimate control, but the men have control of their lives and their health, and they've lost that control because they have no desire to be reasonable and to deal with people like me. But that's not the issue. The 86, they've been cleared for release. What that means is that unanimously, every intelligence agency in the United States has said that not only these are nobodies, these are people that should be released immediately. They're the wrong person to begin with. And not only that, but they're not a danger. So, I mean, they might have picked up the wrong person, and that person now they think's a danger because they're really ticked off. They've been indefinitely detained for 11 years. But these 86, not a risk, not a danger, yet the American public doesn't understand that, and our president refuses to step forward and be a leader on this issue. It's really, and it pains me to say it as a public defender, but it's really our president that has not only caused the hunger strike, but it's his fault that Guantanamo remains open. It's difficult to say, but it's true.
Well, let me take issue with that really quickly because, you know, things in Gitmo were going rather tranquilly for a number of years until the new commanding officer came in. Am I correct? And it was he who decided to begin doing these searches of the Korans for contraband. My understanding is that the inmates have actually offered to surrender their Korans just to not have them trifled with.
Well, this is what happened. I mean, what happened last weekend was that they came in and they attacked the men. They took what they called a show camp, Camp 6. They broke it down, and there was, I believe it was reported in the media, a 5-hour fight. Now, the military hasn't allowed us to speak with our clients yet. So the information we have comes basically from the media. There's several sources that were down there this week that were trying to assess the situation. And at that point, now the military says, look, if they don't want to accept the Quran, we won't make them take it. But look, they've gone way too far. I mean, the men have been striking for 2 months, and now they've broken them all down to basically 24-hour solitary confinement, the entire camp. So it's our hope that the men will stop striking because we want our clients to eat. But the truth of the matter is that likely they pushed these men too far because the new command just doesn't have any institutional continuity. They didn't know in 2007 that this was allowed when there were other hunger strikes. So I think they pushed the men too far, but you know, I'm willing to assess. Here, that's this strike, and I'm going to work hard to get past this strike. But what we need is for the president to stand up and say, we're going to release these 86 individuals who are, for all intents and purposes, innocent. And the report talks about it that you mentioned in the beginning. There's no right-minded individual that thinks it makes sense that we hold innocent individuals in Guantanamo. And that's what we're doing now because they're basically political pawns. The president will not step up to the plate for, 86 Arabic men.
Mm-hmm. Well, Assistant Public Defender Carlos Warner, who represents 11 of the Guantanamo detainees, thank you for talking with us. I hope you'll come back on Viewpoint again.
I hope so. Thank you for having me, John.
Of course. Thank you. Joan Walsh from Salon joins me to talk next about the GOP assault on the New Deal. She's wonderful. You don't want to miss it. It's coming up after the break.